Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Alison Cray, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Warrant Officer Richard Salcole. We warmly welcome the family of Private Robert Edward Salcole, whose story will be told shortly by Warrant Officer Richard Salcole, who is Private Robert Edward Salcole's great-nephew. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this service across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record that they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who had given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Robert Salkeld. Robert Edward Salkeld was born on the 30th of June 1912 in Nyngan, in the Boganshire area of central New South Wales, to Robert Edward Sr. and Gertrude Emily Salkeld. Robert Salkeld enlisted in the 2nd AIF on the 30th of April 1941 and was posted to the 3rd Reserve Motor Transport. Following training, he embarked for overseas service. Arriving in Singapore, his unit joined the 8th Australian Division. Following Japan's entry in the war in early December 1941, the Allied forces on the Malayan Peninsula were pushed back against a rapid Japanese advance. On the 6th of February 1942, 2 days before the Japanese landed in Singapore Island, Salkeld's unit was evacuated from Singapore, arriving on Java on the 11th of February. There they joined other Australian units assembled on Java to form Black Force, named after its commander, Brigadier Arthur Blackburn VC. For a few days, Blackburn mounted a successful holding operation, but by the 11th of March, Black Force was obliged to surrender after the capitulation of Allied forces, and over 2,700 men were taken prisoner, including Robert Salkeld. Over 22,000 Australians were captured by the Japanese when they conquered Southeast Asia in early 1942, more than a third of whom would die in captivity. At the end of 1942, Salkeld was transported to Burma as part of the large workforce being assembled by the Japanese to build the Burma-Thailand Railway. Following the completion of the railway in October 1943, Salkeld was transported from Thailand to Singapore. Here, along with more than 2,000 Australian and British prisoners of war, he embarked upon the ship the Ryukyu Maru to be transported to Japan. The Ryukyu Maru, with 1,318 Australian and British prisoners of war on board, and the Kachidori Maru, carrying 900 British prisoners of war, were part of a convoy carrying mostly raw materials that left Singapore for Japan on the 6th of September 1944. The prisoners were all survivors of the Burma-Thailand Railway. On the morning of the 12th of September 1944, the convoy was attacked by American submarines in the South China Sea. The Ryukyu Maru was sunk by the USS Sea Lion II and the Kachidori Maru by the USS Pimpernel. Prisoners able to evacuate the ships spent the following days in life rafts or clinging to wreckage in open water. About 150 Australian and British survivors were rescued by American submarines. A further 500 were picked up by Japanese destroyers and continued the journey to Japan. Those not rescued perished at sea. 1,559 prisoners of war were killed in the incident, all missing at sea. Salkeld was one of the missing. It is believed that he clung to the floating debris for 4 days before disappearing beneath the waves. He was 32 years old. Today, his name, along with those of the 543 Australians who were killed in the sinking of the Ryukyu Maru, appear on the Labuan Memorial in Malaysia. His name is also listed on the Roll of Honour to my left, among with 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. But this is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Robert Edward Salkeld, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over, but in Australia, they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and we wish you all a very good evening.